Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Warm N Cozy Quilting. I'm Jason.
I'm Sadie.
Sadie, we're, going to do the thing. Danielle is teaching her 100 modern block class today. Second class of 5 per month. Jeez, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of cute little blocks. That's what I know.
Well, that is not an untrue statement. But good Lord. That's a full day, 9 to 4 each day. And so, yeah, it's going to be a lot. So anyway, good to see you all on. Remember to say hi, join in the conversation. We're actually going to be talking today about rules and tips and things that are in the quilting world. If you guys know me any way, shape, or form, you know I do not believe in rules in quilting. They don't exist.
Rules are meant to be broken.
Completely meant to be broken. However, that said, there are some strong suggestions that we thoroughly encourage people to follow.
Definitely.
So we got some information on that we'll talk about today. So it should be a good day. It should be fun. I look forward to doing this one. Oh my goodness. Don't forget to, again, hit that share button. Also, we are on YouTube, so you can watch over there just the same. And if you miss something today, you can always go back and watch it over there. Just make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Helps us out when you do. Thanks
really
so
does.
much.
We appreciate it. So, I was going to turn on my chat over here so I can see that. Sometimes people talk over there.
Yeah.
Sometimes. That's okay. We'll get there where everybody goes there eventually. And then we'll be YouTube stars. We'll be famous. Maybe. Maybe not.
Famous. I don't know if that amount of power would be good for you.
It wouldn't be. It would be terrifying.
Or me.
Or you especially.
That
I mean,
matter.
let's be honest here. You are more scary than I am at this point. I don't know. Anyway.
Depends who you ask, I
guess really is what it comes down to. So anyway, I'm still trying to rearrange my screen here. I apologize for that. A little discombobulated. We got people saying good morning. You want to say hi to some people?
Yeah, let's say hello.
Hi. All right, so we have Deborah out there.
Good morning.
We have Elvina.
Good morning.
And Joe.
Hello.
And Rita. I'm sorry, Jodelle. My bad. We got Sharon.
Hi.
And we got Pamela.
Hi, Pam.
And Pam.
And hi, Pam.
And there's two. We got Christine and Mary's hanging out with us this morning.
Hello, hello.
Pamela's looking forward to the Zoom class for the 100 block.
Nice.
That's going to be a good time.
Yes.
That is soonish.
The second set, so
not Tuesday, but anyway.
Right.
You know, we sent you the dates. We should be good. We scrolled past them. Ooh. Got good morning to Linda out there. And we got Dolores. And
hello.
Kelly, you should be working. What are you doing? Kidding. We got Joanne out here with us. Good morning. And Sandy. Good morning, Patty. And hello, Julie.
Good morning.
And good morning, Vicki. Nice. Love it. Hello, and good day. Good morning. All the things. So much fun. All right. So.
Hopefully you have your coffee or your beverage of choice.
I have not had near enough coffee this morning, so I apologize if I feel a little not communicative.
We were all talking about how, for whatever reason this morning, it's been a little bit tough to get moving. So if you're feeling that way too, welcome.
Right. It's all good. Get it. Happens. Good morning, Karen. Good to see you on. So a couple things to talk about before we go and jump right into this, because there's a lot to discuss in this rules and suggestions and the quilt police and all that. Yes, we're addressing the quilt police today.
Bum, bum, bum.
Ta-da. Anyway, things to know about. We are open. Come and see us. We're here today from 11 to 4. We have Genomes for sale. There is that Janome special that was going from Black Friday to the end of the year. They've extended it through January.
Nice.
There's a reason they extended it through January. February 1st, machine prices are going up. It's inevitable. It was bound to happen. I don't know how much, but they will be going up, creeping up slowly as everything has been doing on us. So if you've been looking at a new machine, be it a big, new, awesome move up to the next best thing, or if you have something small and you just want to step up a little bit, come in, talk to us, see what we got. Because don't forget that machine goes along with our service. And frankly, I think we're the best. I think so. I mean, I haven't been proven wrong yet. I don't know. That's not sure. I probably have been, but that's okay. So come see us on any of that.
Yeah, especially if you're thinking about taking more classes, get a portable machine, or just spoil yourself. This is a great hobby.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a hobby where the tools make it. So
absolutely.
Get the best tool that you can afford to make it a little bit less frustrating.
Absolutely. Make it more enjoyable for sure. So that is all what's going on there. Don't have anything major going on other than that. Pamela spent the last 2 days organizing and cleaning up her sewing room. Oh my, you are excited.
That's so fun.
So much fun. And she found some things she forgot she had.
Oh, that's even more fun. When
it's
you
like
can
a second Christmas.
Yeah, you can shop your own stash.
Right.
And you're like, oh, this is so beautiful.
This is mine.
You're like, I didn't know I had this.
When did I buy me
that?
That's awesome. I do love that.
Yes.
Pat, saying hi from Florida. Wow, that's a long way from home. Hi, Pat. Glad you're having your good old time down there in Florida. Love it. Good morning, Jackie. Good to see you on. And Jodelle. Jodelle got herself that little red travel
did.
mate.
Yes.
Here, I'll show you the box because this belongs to somebody. They're going to come pick it up. There's the box. You need one?
They're so cute. Look, I really don't need one, but because it's red,
It's really the only reason why
I keep thinking about
people are buying them. It's because they're red. It's a great little basic machine. It's awesome for travel. It's only 11 pounds. It's computerized, so therefore it's got the start-stop button and the needle up, down, and attack. But it's just great. If you need one, come see me. I don't have any in stock. I now have to order more because I get them and then they're gone.
But if you want to get in on this next order, call today.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's really tough to keep them in stock all the time. I guess I'm going to have to order like 80 at a time. I don't have any idea. I don't even know. Good morning, Brenda. Good to see you out there. Pam Bealey spent yesterday doing odds and ends organizing.
Nice.
Start of the year, it's good to take a minute, assess what you've got.
Kind of knock the dust off.
Right, yeah. Get things ready for the year of chaos because Christmas is coming. You are going to have to make gifts for people.
It's always coming.
It's always, yeah. As soon as you get past it, here it comes again. Well, that was kind of almost depressing.
It was a little bit much.
Oh.
That was a little intense for this morning.
I wasn't ready for it. That's for sure. Good morning, Jody. Good to see you on. All right. So, you ready to do this?
I'm ready.
All right. So, today, we're discussing rules of quilting. All right. What does that mean? I believe, again, that there are no rules in quilting. So what I want from you guys, though, is to hear what your either most favorite rule is, and not be a rule necessarily, but like best advice maybe that you've ever gotten.
Sure.
Or one that you live by, being that you've self-imposed your rules, such as Danielle lives by the rule of don't put white and cream in a quilt top.
Right.
This doesn't mean you can't. This is her rule. She will not do that. So if you ever see Danielle make a white and cream quilt, call the police. This is not Danielle. That is an imposter.
Yes. There's been
something
cloning or something.
So I want to know what your guys' personal rules are, or if you have one that you like to live by that you enjoy. I also want to know if you have a rule that you've heard that is like the worst thing ever. Like you can't mix batiks with regular cottons. Like that seems crazy to me.
Right.
To me, that's weird. That doesn't mean you can't live by that rule.
Sure.
That might be your favorite rule. What is yours? I'm curious. I would like to know.
Yeah.
Because the way I see this, we've been doing this for several years now.
Right.
To the community, there are people that have been doing this way longer than us.
For sure.
But there's also people that haven't been. So I like to know what your rules are and why. And I will tell you my rules and why. And we'll talk about why we have rules in the first place.
Well, and it's not so much now with the way things are in this modern world, but it used to be that sewing was passed down by someone in the community. And so a lot of these rules, it was, well, that's just the way that Martha, who taught me, always did it, or that's just the way that I was taught.
Right.
And so you never really ran into enough people to learn all of the different ways that you can quilt, and all the different things that are acceptable. It's a little bit easier now with the internet and all the ways that we meet each other, online and in person. But yeah, so I would love to know what things, especially if they were passed down from someone, that would be really cool to know too.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Because I mean, if your grandma gave you this, do this method, that's what you know.
Right.
And if you're passing that on to other people, that's awesome. That's kind of how we learn and continue to make good. So we're going to talk about some of these things. But first and foremost, we're going to address the quilting police. Are they real? Yes, in a sense. So I did find this fun little bit of information. All right. So there may have actually been a society of quilt police for a short period of time.
What? Like for real?
Like really?
Like they're going to show up at my house?
Like
knock on the door?
I don't think it was that serious. It wasn't started in that way.
All right.
All right. So here's what happened. This gal, her name was Shauna Decky. She was born in 1897 to Carl and Mary Decky. Okay. The family owned a haberdashery in Woodbury, New York. Haberdashery being kind of like a hobby shop, if you will. Okay. Fabrics and notions and things of the sort. You see where this is going. So, 1917, she's 20 years old. She was engaged to a young man who died in World War I. So she swore she would never find another. And so she didn't. She pretty much was not married the rest of her life. She just didn't want to deal with it. So she put all of her effort into quilting because, again, the convenience of a family-owned store makes sense. So 1948, she, at the age of 51, wanted to kind of come up with a, system to kind of help establish rules, if you will, for quilt making, to really give people good guideline structure. Exactly. Yeah. So that way, new people trying to get into quilting had something to work off of. All right. So her and her fellow quilters established the Maternal Order of Quilt Piecers Society. Kind of a long name, but it kind of goes along with that whole Fraternal Order of Police and whatever. So it kind of had that same ring to it. So that's what the whole goal of it was to create the system for a legacy of quilting to keep it, consistent and even for people. So they even had a regulatory handbook, and I found this one odd. Associated fines that you could assess to people in like your quilt guild, more out of 10 cents for you flip that block the wrong way, and those funds would go to the guild to help them fund their activities and things of the sort.
Oh, well, that's kind of cool.
Not a bad idea. Like, the intent was great. I mean, it sounds awesome.
Yeah.
It wasn't intended to be malicious or crazy or, demeaning, but, just for the process. This quickly caught on and spread across the country. Within the first year, they had 200 chapters across the country, associated with groups and guilds, big and small, all over the place. So while it started with the best of intentions, by July 1952, the chapters began to disband. This is what happens when you give people power. So us being YouTube stars,
yeah, not a good plan.
Not in the stars for us. So because due to human nature, there became people drunk with power, reports of excessive findings for like twisted seams or something silly of the nature.
Oh wow.
There was even a reported instance, or purported, I say, because I couldn't find evidence of it, of a false imprisonment in Central Arkansas.
Oh my gosh.
When Kim Connors was locked in her sewing room by Darla Henry because Kim attempted to attach unwashed and unmeasured fabric to her border for her quilt top.
Oh no. I mean, don't do that.
I can only imagine, like, there's serious time that's going to happen to somebody like Darla. Like, you can't do that. You can't convince yourself that you're gonna lock them in there. You can't do that.
Wow.
So because of this, they decided we're done.
That's like the strictest timeout.
This is wild. Like, you can't do that to people, so don't do that to people.
No.
But with this and the dissent that it was creating, they decided it's best to disband such things and just not do that anymore. So they began disbanding. It was really hard to say. So yeah, that's kind of where it came from. And because of the quilt piecers part of that, it's very similar to quilt police. So
Oh, quilt
therefore,
piece, quilt police. I get it.
that's where they kind of grabbed that term from, and that's because it was becoming derogatory in that fashion in that way. So yeah, we're not gonna, yeah. So they cut that out. So then in 2023, 70 years later, this order was resurrected because I made it all up. Schonedecke is actually very similar in terminology to the word beautiful quilt in German. So that was entirely fabricated. There were no quilt police and never have been.
Wow.
Ever.
You had me going.
I know.
You had me going. I was a little bit like, oh my God, somebody could really show up to my house because I've twisted this theme. Knocking on my door.
I know what you did. Let me in. No.
And ready to like with a itemized fine.
Team coming in.
Yes. There are too many smart devices, okay? The amount.
I'm telling you what.
Like easily you could somehow the speaker in my sewing room would know that I've messed something up and someone's going to show up.
Yeah, no, it's not
that fear was real.
Yeah, no, it's not that real at all. The quilt police are entirely a fabrication of our own making. It lives in your head, really. Like the quilt police are not real. They're not going to come to get you. You do have quilters that will offer suggestions.
Sure.
And it really does come from a place of good intention. Because, you know, if it's somebody that's been doing this for a long time, they've learned that this is really a lot better. And that works really well for them.
Yeah.
And sometimes they overexpress that and try to push that on you. And that may not work for you.
Right.
So, again, it's always from a good intention. It's not always the case. So, such imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. That's why we come here every Saturday morning, right? I really did. I leaned into it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get for a backstory. I'm going to Shauna, whatever. Actually, so beautiful Becky it really is German for beautiful quilt. It's not Shauna. I'm not German speaking. So there's like an extra inflection in there that you need that I just didn't because I don't speak German. And the letters, like one of those weird, like RGBs.
An Esset? Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
I took many years of German.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but that's, I thought that was fun to add to the little flair of the story.
Fun. So fun.
Anyway, just be aware if you run into somebody that is very particular and impresses their opinions on you, take it with a grain of salt. It may be helpful. Don't be afraid to try with their suggestion, but also know that if you decide to not go that route, it's okay. You can do whatever you want.
I mean, everybody has that thing that they've tried like 3 times and never worked for them, and now they're like, I will never ever do that again.
Mm-hmm. So I have an example of this, and I'm going to call Danielle on it. And I'm sorry, Danielle, when you watch this later. Danielle absolutely can't stand using glide thread on the long arms. Like, she has had experiences like multiple times that she's tried to use it.
Sure.
Just the machines were like, nope, not doing it. Well, also when you quilt for hire, you're kind of on a time frame. So you don't have time to want to fight with this.
Right.
So it's easier to just go back to what we know. I, on the other hand, have used glide thread before. And not that I didn't have my fight with it, but I managed to make it work. And I didn't hate it. I've been to customers' houses who use glide thread on their long arms all day, every day. It's a personal preference. A lot of these things are that. So not necessarily telling on her, but, she doesn't like it, and I'm okay with it. That's 2 different opinions in the same house.
Yeah. So her tip might be never use glide thread, but that it isn't going to be the answer for everyone.
Correct. Exactly. So I did put here that quilting is a lot like Monopoly in that
it comes with fake money.
Right.
To buy supplies.
Fake money.
Where's my fake money?
Can I have some fake money? Where is the free parking? Because I need to be there. Because again, that's a house rule. That's where I was going with that. It's you have your basic principle of the game, but then every family has a different house rule. So I mean, like you can go from one house to the next, and free parking, you get the money here, over there. No, the money goes back in the bank. I like the free parking in the middle conversation.
Yeah.
Do you play that way?
Yeah,
okay.
I do.
Have you met anybody that doesn't play that way?
No.
I have. They're weird. They're no longer part of my life. No. Free parking in the middle. That's aggressive. I'm sorry. That's not true.
I mean, I haven't played Monopoly in a long time. It ends friendships. And
well,
It can.
Some families it can. Our family, the game ender is Uno.
Oh.
Uno becomes real aggressive in my
Mm.
family. Yeah, we don't. We want to start a family fight. Get the Uno cards out. Let's go.
No, let's not. Let's not.
Let's not do that. That's Christmas time. Don't do that. That is a real thing. That's scary, is what it is. Anyway, so these rules get passed down, and all these suggestions, and everything works out well. So I have broken this down into two different opinions. There's habits that you create for yourself that are pretty standard across the board of quilting. By that, I mean that if you practice these habits, it will make the process a little easier. After that, then you have your rules. This is where we're going to start falling to what you guys are posting out here, commenting what your rules are that you've learned or were taught to do, which may not be everybody's.
Right.
Okay, so we'll talk about each of those. All right, so habits. A couple of different habits that are really kind of super important to this whole process and not really refutable. Biggest one, 1/4 inch seam.
Gotta do it.
If you don't have a 1/4 inch seam, like 90% of the patterns I've seen, you have to have a 1/4 inch seam.
Right.
Like it's standard.
And I know and have heard of other quilters who take a different seam allowance and will remath every pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And kudos to them, because that sounds like a lot of work.
Right. It is a lot of work, and that's okay. If that's your method.
Sure.
I
And
say
if
go
that
for
works
it.
for you, and if you, because I know some people want a deeper seam because they've had popped seams.
Right.
If you've had a bad experience, then absolutely you're going to do things differently.
Absolutely.
But yes,
if you do go bigger than a 1/4 inch, do know you're going to have to math that because
for sure.
that will change the size of your blocks. Even if you're not intending to do that and you don't know how to sew a 1/4 inch seam or you don't know your machine well enough to know what that 1/4 inch seam looks like, your blocks are going to vary. So when you go to put a 9 patch together, it's going to be super uneven and it's going to be very tough to work with.
Right.
So if you don't have a 1/4 inch foot, you need something like this in your life, or a ruler that you can use to measure a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch, or if you put two 2.5 inch pieces together and you open that up, it should be 4.5 inches. If you put that under your ruler and it's 5 inches, you're not sewing a 1/4 inch.
Your
You're
foot
like 1/8 of an inch.
or your machine or your ruler, somewhere along the line, someone lied to you.
Something's lying to you. Something in that equation is broken. So, biggest habit to get into, make sure you got an accurate 1/4 inch. You're going to have to check. The biggest thing that I saw that's super helpful is that you check regularly. So if you're new to this or you got a new machine, you sew a couple blocks together, you should take them out, lay them out, and measure and make sure everything is coming out to what it should be. Making sure that that 1/4 inch is a 1/4 inch. Okay?
That's good advice that people should follow.
This is really good advice because a lot of people I have found have never heard that.
Right.
When I get a quilt in here, because we never say no, and your 1/4 inch goes from this to back to this, it didn't go as well as it should have for you, I'm sure of it. So it's okay to take that and check it. If you're new, check it regularly. If you've been doing this forever, you probably don't have to check it as much.
Or
But
if you get a new machine or alter your setup in some way,
Right.
it's good to just do a double check.
absolutely, always verify your stuff. Always worth it.
And if it's off, you can work it in. It's not life or death.
Yeah, no, it isn't at all life or death by any means. It's manageable, always manageable.
Sure.
Just know that it might be a thing. Measure twice, cut once. I believe I saw that out here somewhere.
I did, yes.
Absolutely, yeah. Julie, you said that for sure. Super important. Now, measure twice, cut once isn't just in the quilting world. This is in any crafting style. You're, tradesman,
Right.
carpentry, ironworking, any of these things where you have the material you're working with that once you cut it, you can't easily add back on. You want to make sure you measure that twice and make sure you are measuring it properly. I'm not saying that I've had a project where I was supposed to cut 1.5 inches and may have cut it at 1 inch.
Oh, I'm the worst. Cutting 2.5 inch strips, right? I have my stripology. I'm like, okay, 2.5, 5, 7.5, 10, all of that's fine. And then I cut it 12.
Yeah, that's not
Right.
That's 2.
I don't know what it is
You can't
about
tape that
going
back
from
together.
10 to 12.5 that is troubling for me. But I have to put the sticker on my stripology ruler or I will cut a 12 every time. My brain just says that's the right number. And it's not.
I don't laugh at you because it's laughing at. I'm laughing because I've been there. I've done this. It's something your brain just says, "Oh, cut here, okay."
Yep. And
Oh,
then
wait,
I'm
why
just
did
like,
you do
yep. And when you're having to buy materials for your project and then you're losing materials that you can't use, that's no fun. Don't
Especially
do
if it's
that.
a material you can't get more of.
Right?
Even worse.
Right?
So, yes, absolutely best habit to get into. Measure twice, cut once. With that, stay consistent in your measuring device.
Right. Right.
If you're measuring and you're using your mat, that's fine. Ignore the grids on your ruler or your straight edge. If you're using your ruler, ignore your mat. Pick a system that works for you. Okay.
An inch is not always an inch.
Depending on your manufacturer. So, with that said, brand, not because you want to be a Creative Grids fan or an OmniGrid, an OmniGrid or Studio 180, or you pick the brand that you like, but don't change brands of rulers between. So we've always been told that with maps, there's always some part that's wrong in a map by manufacturer, by printer, because that's their trademark. If it's that city's not identified or that road's a little crooked or what have you. Same principle applies with these. They try to keep them as close to an inch as possible, but they can vary ever so slightly. Is it on the line? Is it to the side or this side of the line? Like, where's that 1 inch mark at? So whatever you use for measuring, make sure you stay consistent.
Sure.
It's going to change your life when you do that. So don't go buying Creative Grids and an Omni and then try to use both on the same project. You're going to be disappointed. Okay?
Potentially.
Not trying to be brand favoring it all the time, but use what works best, but stay consistent. Great thing.
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify. I like that.
Yes.
Also, some people will only use their mats exclusively. Again, stay consistent. And I think that's really the key to all this, is staying consistent with everything. And you're going to hear that repeatedly throughout all of these topics. So, have any of you ever experienced this ruler situation where you have one and you've switched to another and then things weren't matching up right? Like, I don't know that I've ever experienced that. If I did, I feel like I was still too new in it and I was just grabbing whatever Danielle had at hand. But and so my piecing was horrible anyway, but
I've seen it more with the tapes being off than necessarily the ruler to the mat. Because like I've checked that my ruler and my mat line up and they do, and that makes me happy because then I know that I can go in between. I'm not saying that's a good idea, but that's what I do personally in my own sewing situation.
So I have seen, I believe it was this guy on these. If you try to lay that grid on this, it'll be fine. But as it works out, it varies like just ever so slight.
Yeah.
So it is real.
Oh, for sure.
But,
and I have a measuring tape at home that I threw away because when I laid it out, for the first couple inches, it looks like they're lined up, but they're off just so slightly that once you get down into, several inches, there's enough variance that would add up. That would be a problem.
Well, and those fiberglass type measuring tapes are known for, with wear and use, they kind of start stretching a little bit. So
absolutely.
You got to be aware of those for sure. All right. Useful habit number 3.
Okay.
Use the best material you can afford. I'm not telling you have to come in here and buy the $15 a yard material that I just got in.
It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous. It's going to last a long time.
Right.
It's going to be great. But if you're not in that level of budget just yet, that's okay.
Sure.
But if you can afford it and you want that project to last for a very long time, don't go to Walmart and buy the fabric hanging up on the pre-cuts. It's going to fall apart. Don't do that to yourself. Please stop doing it.
I know that we've talked about this at length in previous videos.
Absolutely.
But just to give you like the shortened condensed version, usually when you're talking about the difference in quality between quilt shop quality and other quality fabrics, you're talking about a difference in gray goods, a difference in finishes that is going to affect the final result. So quilting is one of those hobbies where you get what you pay for, and it does work out where if you're paying for the higher quality thing, it's probably going to last longer and hold up better over time.
Absolutely will, for sure. And again, now quilting came from a place of reusing materials.
Right.
So clothing was reused and repurposed into make patches so that you could put a quilt together so that way you could keep warm. This is real. It's okay. That's why it's a good habit.
Yes.
It's not a set mandatory rule. You don't have to go buy the newest fabric in the store. You can use what's at hand.
Oh, I mean, feed
Just
sack quilts are beautiful and
absolutely.
amazing, and you couldn't buy that at the store. I mean, that's the whole thing,
Right.
is that you were using found fabrics, and those quilts are wonderful and still, a great quilt to have, but
Right.
wouldn't necessarily want to do that today
Mm-mm.
and hope that it would last as long.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So it does come down to quality. Be sure that again, go with what you can afford. We've had customers come in before that I've had her. One in particular, she was explaining how, she'd been quilting for a little while, had not really been able to afford the good quality fabric, so she didn't come
Sure.
in a whole lot. So she was like, "So I'm kind of happy that I've got something to work with now. I'm going to get some of the good stuff and go with it." Um, you know, so I don't see her a whole lot. She does come in occasionally, but it's not, and that's okay. I get that. I understand.
Sure.
Life is
Yeah.
a pain in the butt sometimes, and it's a hobby, so it's not mandatory. So you do what you can to make it work for you. So just know that go do what you can. Know what you're gonna get what you pay to get
Right.
out of it.
Absolutely.
So, and that does go with a lot of the things, like notions included sometimes. So
Absolutely.
I hate to be the bearer of that bad news.
I know. No one likes to pay more for something than they feel they should, right?
Right. No,
So
absolutely.
I completely get that too, but it really does make a difference in this case.
Absolutely. Another really, really good, helpful habit to get yourself into, always, 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 and I know I've got people out there that will agree with this, close your rotary cutter when you're done using it. You're going to set it down because it's time to do something else, or I've cut, I'm going to set it down for just a second, close it.
Be careful with sharp things. We don't want you to be injured in the line of making a quilt. That is not the goal.
I mean, if you're trying to blood, sweat, and tear into it, I guess cool.
You
But
don't have to be literal.
It is totally figuratively. Don't let her.
Yeah, they could be metaphorical blood in your quilt, okay?
Please don't do that. So yeah, I saw actually I was reading some lists last night, and again, a lot of them were very like they started off good with intention of like habits or what good rules are, and then they would go biased in their opinions, and I'm like, eh. But this one, when I read that, I'm like, that's brilliant. That is absolutely the best rule
Yes.
or habit I would ever recommend to somebody. Just close it.
Consider safety in all things.
It's not always third, Danielle.
It's not always third. It can be first.
Can be and shouldn't normally be. With that, you also want to make sure you maintain your tools. So keep your rotary cutters clean. Make sure you keep things oiled. Make sure you're putting a cover over your sewing machine if you're not using it for long periods of time.
Right.
We don't want lint and dust and all that stuff building up on your machine while you're away for a couple months doing other things.
Don't fight with a dull blade. You're just going to cut yourself.
It will cause problems when it slips out of there and you're moving fast and mad that it's not cutting. It will manage to cut you, though, wildly enough. It can't cut the fabric, but it'll go right through your finger. Why? Don't do it.
And every time I change my blade, I'm like, why didn't I do it sooner?
Oh, yes, Julie, you're absolutely right. Wear a cut-proof glove. Like,
yes.
If you are prone to anything, like if you just, the gods are always against you and it's just crazy, you always, if it's your luck, put a glove on. Like, the cut-proof, not just like an isotoner. That's not going to save you.
No.
But just be careful, all right? And again, cleaning your mats. So your cutting mat, don't forget about her. Like if you are cutting and cutting, you're kind of almost pushing fabric into like small grooves in that mat. Get a mat cleaner, which is just a little silicone scrubber.
Right.
Just kind of rub that across there and get all that extra stuff out. If it's a self-healing mat, your self-healing mat's going to last longer doing that. I've seen people say, "Oh, take it and throw it in a tub and let it soak," and I'm not going to do that. But some brands can do that, but I don't.
I think there is something to be said about getting moisture back into your mats. So I do think it's a good idea to get them wet every so often. I do know that some places recommend that.
Okay.
So I think there is some merit to that advice, but anytime you can get all of that lint from your fabrics and your threads out of that mat, it's going to help that mat last longer.
Absolutely. Okay, makes sense. A couple more on good habits to have before we really start getting into the actual rules or quote unquote rules. Oh, Vicky, I'm sorry. Be careful out there, folks. Hope you get better soon. She cut her hand.
Yeah, I hate to hear it.
Do that.
Hate to hear it.
So a couple more things in good habits. Now, I'm going to talk, and I'm just going to say this. Wash your fabric or your quilts using color catchers. All right. I say it with the caveat of, I'm not telling you wash your fabrics. And I'm not telling you have to use color catchers, but I don't wash my fabrics.
Right. I'm not a
I'm gonna piece
pre-washer.
it together, but when I wash it for the first time or three, I'm throwing color catchers in with it.
Smart.
Okay. But if also I pre-wash, I'm going to pre-wash it with color catchers to get the dye out. Okay.
Right.
So regardless of what habit you decide to go with, use color catchers. It will make your life that much better. Okay.
In modern fabrics, the way they treat them now, color fastness is not the issue that it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But
quilt shop quality.
You don't want it to be an issue.
Right.
So use the color catcher. It's not that expensive, and you will save yourself a lot of headache if something is bleeding.
Right. Absolutely.
That's my recommendation.
It's a good recommendation.
Thanks.
Like it. All right. Last but not least, in good habits. Again, not a rule. It's a strong suggestion here. Quilt with even density. Now, a lot of this time we've been talking about has had to do with your piecing process. A lot of these things are piecing related when it comes to long arm quilting or just machine quilting, hand quilting. A lot of that is not so hardcore rule.
Right.
But a really good recommendation and habit to have is that when you quilt, make sure it's consistently dense across the quilt. I have a quilt that I don't know where I've put it. Oh, it's in Daniel's office. But I have large patches of no quilting and areas of super dense quilting. This thing lays like a country road. It's atrocious. So even density across the quilt when you quilt it,
right?
Really good habit to get into. Unless you're doing something artistic and you want it to be specifically that, like that's what you're going for. So keep that in mind as just a nice habit to get yourself into if you aren't there already. Okay? All right. Ready to get into rules?
Rules. Let's go.
Oh, gosh. Okay. I'm going to look over here and see what we have for rules that people have put out there because I'm curious.
Yeah.
Because I saw some kind of roll through. So I'm going to see what we got here. So, ironing. Good conversation. We've got a topic on that. We're going to discuss the ironing. Don't sew over pins. I didn't write that down.
Oh, that's a good one, though.
That's a good one. Now, to that caveat, there are people that were trained that way. Like school and home ec classes, they would teach you to just sew over pins because if you're running perpendicular to your needle, your pins are usually small and the needle will just slip over the top of it. Very rarely was it a head-on collision. So, doable, but I don't recommend it.
It's so scary to me. Like even talking about it, I'm like,
you're scared and panicked.
I'm so scared. Don't do it. Like metal hitting metal at a high rate of speed just sounds like a bad idea.
Absolutely.
And I wear eye protection daily.
And yeah, I mean, unless it's safety glass, though. I mean,
right.
Be careful with that.
So be careful. If that's the way you live your life, that is fine.
Living on the edge.
Please be careful. I'm worried about you.
So squaring your blocks, Joanne said, is super important. Squaring blocks are important. There are some designs and some processes that I've used that once I've completed sewing my block, it's exactly what it is. So there's not really any squaring to do, but it's always good to check for sure. Again, not always the norm. There's always exceptions to that, but a really good hint to use for sure. Probably a good tip to have. Read the entire pattern first. That's probably actually more of a really good habit to be in.
That is a good habit.
I really strongly suggest that to everybody, especially like this month's mystery quilt. The pattern is not my favorite, the way that the author wrote it up. Strongly recommend read the whole thing first to get an understanding of what the goal is, and then use your method accordingly. So super good idea to read your patterns first.
Especially before you start cutting things out. Read it all first.
And Jodelle said she usually reads the pattern several times on that. Absolutely. Pressing, good idea. Let's see what Deborah said here. So Deborah's great-grandmother and grandmother had 2 rules. So if you're going to use flour stacks, get to the flour mill early and get the nicest prints. Oh, yeah. Very nice. Very similar to today. If you want the good, cool fabrics, you got to get to the shop early before it's all gone.
It's true.
And then when you buy a dress or a shirt or a blouse, think of how it will look in a quilt. Again, speaking to that, you're going to repurpose it once you've worn its life. It's going to go into something else. So, or you've spilled the coffee on it. Now you got to, what?
Right.
What are you going to do with it?
Quilters are nothing if not resourceful.
Absolutely. Eula May agreeing with the rotary cutters and using your glove. Still don't have any feeling in my tip from slicing the tip. Oh, good Lord, Donna. That's unfortunate. Sorry, pardon me. No fun. But yeah, it's sad when colors fade in the light. Baby quilt that was washed first and then it shrunk. All right, so that, yes, you made with the washing the quilt and it shrank. It's, this is the hazard in the washing conversation. We'll talk about that a little bit here in a second for sure. Rita sews over pins. Rita's going to buy a new machine from us next week.
Fine, Rita.
Cool. I got a machine
You were
for
taught
you.
that way. It's okay.
Look up the M7. It'll
I'm
be great.
worried about you. I'm just kidding.
Wear safety glasses.
Just kidding.
Oh, Pam, good one. Change the machine needle often and use the proper needle for the item you're sewing.
Yes.
I would also put that more under a good habit.
Yeah.
Again, that whole maintaining your machines or maintaining your equipment, a sharp new needle is super important to making sure everything's working properly, that your seams are right, that your stitch is happening properly.
You need more than one needle?
You probably should at least once every 4 years.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Lord. We do recommend changing your needle every large project, just for conversational, be aware of that. Good morning, Debbie. Good to see you out there. Rita, I don't do it often enough, but replace needles.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, replace your needle. And Regina, again, with the measure twice, cut once. Again, absolutely one of the best suggestions out there.
And I see everyone saying press as well.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my least favorite part. So I need all the reminders. So thank you.
So let's have a conversation about some of the rules that I've come across last night.
Okay.
Or the other day while I was looking through all the rules that are out there. Again, I'm not trying to start World War III here, just to be aware of that, but I do appreciate good conversation. So if you have opinions about the rules that we're going to talk about, I say rules because I feel that these are personal preferences. Feel free to put your opinions on the items out here. I would love to hear your horror stories as to why you don't do it or why you don't bother to try.
Right.
Okay? Don't feel bad about joining in on this. Nobody's going to judge. The first part, to wash or to not, washing your fabric. So like Eula May said, she had a baby quilt, washed it, it shrank. There are different schools of thoughts on how to handle your fabrics.
Right.
The idea of a couple things, main factors here. Fabric bleeding.
Yep.
So you always want to check your color fastness. Okay. I did read, there's a couple ways you can do it. I've heard you can put it in some ice water. I also heard you can just get it damp or wet and then squeeze it between your finger with a paper towel. If it's going to bleed, you're going to transfer dye straight to that paper towel, so it's going to be obvious. Flannels are pretty notorious for that, for bleeding. So you want to watch out for your flannels. Always color check them for sure. Shrinkage. Flannel shrinks at a way different rate than your 100% cottons do.
Right.
So sometimes it's good to pre-wash to get the shrink out of there, especially if you're planning on mixing.
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother conversation. We'll get to that. So checking all those things out. Some people don't like it because they don't like washing out the sizing and other things that make the fabric so already kind of like paper-ish. They don't want to wash all that out because once you wash it, it feels a little more fluffy already. So some people don't care to work with that. They don't feel they like to work with the loose nature of the fabric at that point. But some people love it. Again, it's all personal preference.
Sure.
You're not right. I'm not right. Maybe we're both right. Is that possible?
Right. I think so.
Okay, we're all right. High five. Yeah. Okay. Again, if you're going to wash or not wash, or it's going to get washed at some point, color catchers.
Yes.
Cannot express that one enough. Please, color catchers. But whatever you do, be consistent.
Right.
Okay. So let's say I'm going to put this quilt together. I decide I'm going to wash this panel. I'm going to wash all the fabric that's going to go with this panel as well.
Right.
I'm going to work with all washed material.
Because you want everything to shrink at roughly the same rate. So
exactly.
All unwashed or all pre-washed.
Absolutely. Okay. So with washing or not washing, that is that. And I know I've got several people out there. Karen, big washer, wash your fabrics beforehand. So I appreciate your guys' input. It is contrary to what I believe. But again, I've never experienced a horrific situation. So maybe that's why I don't have the sense of urgency to do so. Doesn't mean bad either way. Let's see what we got here for conversations. My quilting life totally changed for the better when I started changing sewing machine needles. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. So shrinking may be in the batting used as well. Yeah, that is another conversation to be aware of too. Battings can shrink.
They can.
Be sure to just check what the directions are on it. Some people I've heard of people washing battings ahead of time or throwing them in a dryer to try to heat them up to make them shrink ahead of time. I haven't had this problem yet. I've got several quilts at home. that Danielle's made, quilted them up. I hate admitting it out loud, but they kind of just go from the washing machine to the dryer.
Right.
So
They get that quilt crinkle.
they get a little bit of crinkly, but they haven't like shrunk up. I have seen pictures though of people that have dried them, and they're like a ball.
Yeah.
Because things went horribly awry.
And you can get some pre-shrunk battings as well.
Right.
Those
That
are
helps.
out there on the market too.
Absolutely. So rule number 1, washing your fabric. Again, it's a personal preference, but find what works for you. And again, always check that color fastness, especially if it's flannel. Like flannel is the only thing I'm really sketchy on.
Yeah.
Also, if you didn't go quilt shop quality, like if you didn't go buy it from your local quilt shop, you bought it in a box store, I would strongly suggest you check that color catcher or color fastness. When it comes to quilt shop quality, they do an extra couple processes to make sure that it doesn't bleed, so that it's properly treated. That doesn't mean we're 100% safe from that, but we're less likely to have bleeding fabrics as some cheaper ones that are out there.
Carol also said, clean your machine often.
Yes.
Very good tip.
Absolutely. Please, for the love of everything.
Makes
Take
your
the
machine...
needle plate off, clean it out, packed with lint.
Yes. And if you're a hand quilter, clean your machine also. Just kidding.
Clean yourself. Go on now. You've been hand quilting for 10 days. Go take a shower, get some food. Go. Take a break. Number 2. All right. Mixing fabric types. I've heard people on both sides. It's wild to hear the conversation that you can't mix this with that. Can you? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. I mean,
the quilt police is not real.
They're not standing in your closet. If
no
they
one's gonna
are,
lock
you better
you in a
call the
room.
real police because they shouldn't be there.
No.
That's weird. Mm-mm. Yeah, nobody's actually watching what you're piecing together. If you're working with a couple different types, just know that they're going to react different. So again, the flannel will shrink at a different rate than the cotton will. Batique's going to have a different feel than the cotton is. So, not that batique's not cotton, it's just the way it's dyed. It's a little more tightly woven. It's a little different.
Process, yeah.
So, you can use whatever you want, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Again, for consistency's sake, you're better off to not cross over if you're trying to stay consistent. That, again, being the key word to all this, consistency.
Sure. I wouldn't make it a regular habit.
Right. But if you find this beautiful blue-green color in a batik that works with this 100% cotton panel,
go for it.
Do it.
It makes your heart happy.
Knock yourself out. It's all fine. Nobody's going to judge you, at least not here. I'm not going to judge you on it. I mean, one of Danielle's most fantastic quilts out there, the Hearts at Sea, is batik and cotton blend. So, I mean, like, it's both in there. But it gives it that little bit of extra razzle-dazzle, if you will. So absolutely worth checking that out and doing that. Ironing your fabric. So we saw press. I didn't see anybody say don't use steam. That one kind of surprised me. I expected to see that one. I didn't. So there's a difference between pressing and ironing.
Yes.
There's a difference. You know this.
Yes.
You know this?
I know this.
Do you know? Raise your hand if you don't know. So you can raise your hand. Nobody's watching.
If you use an iron,
I can't see you.
It's ironing.
Right. So ironing is that you got the heat on the fabric and you're pressing it and moving it, and you are making some.
What the?
I'm sorry, we got a moment.
100 block. Oh, there's some in the back room.
Thank you.
To the left.
Sorry. Bye. Hi. Bye.
Hi. Bye.
Sorry, we had a classroom debacle apparently happening. Sorry about that sidetrack. Anyway. Ironing versus pressing. Ironing is where you're putting it down and you're moving it around and smoothing the fabric as you push it. That will stretch your fabric.
Yes.
You do not want to do this. This is a terrible idea.
Right.
You want to press your fabric where you put the iron on it, lift it, set it down, press it as you go. If you're using starch, don't iron it. Press it. I usually do a very light lift of the machine, so it's almost pushing across there, but I'm not. I swear it looks like I am. I am lifting it so that the weight of the machine is not pressing on the fabric and stretching it. But pressing is very important.
Right.
You want to make sure that those seams are set, that they're not bulky and standing up and all the awfulness that can happen with that. That allows you to control your seams a lot better. Okay. But when it comes to steam, I've heard several arguments on this, myself included.
Some people love using steam.
I have no problems with the idea of using it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, again, same conversation with ironing versus pressing. The steam is going to relax your fabric and it's going to stretch a lot easier. So if you're working with bias and you're using steam, you're kind of inviting chaos into your life. So I would say use the steam sparingly, especially like if you're trying to set a seam. Say you've got it, you've done this half square and you're trying to fold it over, use a lot of starch and it doesn't want to lay over.
Mm-hmm.
Put that iron on there. Just a little bit of steam will help kind of set that in and lay it over so that it stays flat, nice and even. Again, still kind of surprised nobody said that, but that's cool. I love it. I love it. Do you guys use steam? I would like to see steamers. Raise your hand. I mean, like, comments.
Yeah, let us know.
Let me know. And so when it comes to pressing, we've discussed that. Which way do you press your fabric?
To the dark or whatever the way the pattern says. I should have said that in reverse order. I would say I do whatever the pattern says is the number one way, and if the pattern doesn't say, then I press to the dark.
Okay. And that's again, that goes back to the reading the pattern first.
Right.
Again, super helpful hint.
That's what I personally do.
It does matter sometimes. Your pattern writers will have you press to a certain direction sometimes because of the way it's going to piece together.
Right.
If there's going to be a lot of bulk at an intersection, they're giving you the direction to press so that way when you get to there, you're not fighting it. So even though you're going against your better nature to press to the dark, you're pressing it to the light. If you read through the directions, I bet you it says in there why and that you should press it because you're going to put all these together in one section.
Yeah, more than likely at some point they're going to nest, and that's going to be a good way to keep your points.
Mm-hmm.
So
right, nesting is a huge part of that pressing process.
For sure.
Making sure your seams are opposite each other so they nest together.
Right.
Which, if you're pressing to the dark, when you nest that with another one, chances are your dark is opposite anyway, so that's going to allow your seams to lock together.
Right.
Which is why pressing to the dark is usually the most consistent way to go. Now, how about pressing open? Have you ever pressed anything open before?
I have not.
Okay.
I think it's fine. It definitely gets a lot of the bulk out of your seams, so it has its time and place.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not my preference.
Okay. So I have done it a couple times, but really, again, it came to a bulk issue.
Sure.
Having the seam open made it less bulky. I don't care for it. It's a little more locked into place when it's pressed to one side. But, personal preferences there, right? And I'm looking at the time, and I need to speed it up a little bit. And last but not least on this rules thing is I didn't realize this was so much of a conversation. Cut versus torn fabric.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, when it comes to 45 cottons,
Mm-hmm.
this is again my personal opinion. We here always use a rotary cutter to cut the 45s.
Right.
Okay. It's not maybe necessarily 100% square. So you may have to do some squaring up later, but that's also why we kind of have a little bit extra. So if you ask for a yard, it's probably more like 37 inches. But it's going to be straighter than if I tear it. The other thing is if I tear it off the bolt, there's a high chance that we're going to fracture the fabric. So you could lose up to an inch on either side from tearing off the fabric. So off the bolts for 45, we almost always exclusively cut it. If you're a fabric tearer, that's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
Use what you use best, okay? When it comes to backings, however, we always tear those because they're large. They've been stretched and distorted and pulled onto the bolt. So tearing it actually tears it straight of grain,
Right.
so that it is the same quantity of amount from one side to the other. We only do that with the backings because usually your backing is going to be on the back and you're going to have a little bit extra, so that
Right.
possibly fractured fabric up the edge is going to be cut off as waste anyway. So this is why we do that.
Right.
Just in case you were wondering our process and method on that. Several steamers out here, several
Yeah.
non-steamers. I'm loving this. That's cool. Wool mats. Yes, Regina.
Those are
Wool mats
nice.
are great. They retain the heat.
Right.
Super nice for getting the fabric to lay still. So, all right. So those are some of the big rules that I've ran across. And they kind of run in line with what everybody's been saying here. So, glad to see that everybody's all on the same page here. Some great tips to keep in mind. So these, again, aren't necessarily habits you got to get into, just things to remind yourself of.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, are you ready? Here we go. Oh, before I do that, Pamela Shores. We'll press the seam open and then press it to the side. Gives her a super accurate and crisp seam.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I like that.
I might try that.
Yeah, I like that. It seems like a little bit extra work, but again, if you are going for that, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm not throwing something together for a coworker that she needs tomorrow,
Right.
then
Right.
maybe not then, but anything else, like I like that idea. I'm worth giving that a shot. All right, so great tips to keep in mind. Again, great reminder.
Hmm.
Oh, Bonnie, clappers. Sorry, backed up a little bit.
Yeah, someone else had mentioned a clapper
Clappers
too.
were mentioned, and they're great. Again, we don't have them here. Really, what it is a block of wood that really helps to flatten your seam. I've seen them in action. Kind of cool. I can't
It
bring
just
myself to
means
buy
that you
one for
don't have
myself.
to push down on the iron when you're pressing. You have something else that's weighty that does the pressing for you.
Right.
It's very nice.
Very nice. All right, great tips. Number 1, quilt police cannot arrest you.
True.
They're not walking around with handcuffs and a book to fine you with.
With a little patchwork block on their sleeve.
A little Ohio star over
Yeah.
here. On point. Gives it more imposing look. They don't exist. It is really in your own head. Again, stop being so harsh on yourself when your
Right.
piecing is going along. Okay? So keep that in mind.
Be nice to yourself.
Be nice to yourself. Also, if you've made a mistake, back to the be nice to yourself, don't rush to point it out.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay? Look, I'm guilty of this. I have done this. I do it to
yes.
this day. Are you kidding me? All the time.
Kelly knows every quilt I bring in here. I'm like, well, but this doesn't line up, and that's for a lot of quilters. That's your go-to because that's what you are focused on is
Right.
everywhere that you messed up. Don't point them out.
Don't point them out.
No one needs that.
Nobody's going to see it. Here's the thing, though. What you can do, as a suggestion, take a picture of your work. Look at that. You're going to see it better.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a quilty friend, send it to them and say, hey, this look good.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're prone to flip a block here and there. We all have that habit.
Sure.
It happens. Or, here's another thing. If you're at a guild meeting or somewhere where people are showing off their quilts and somebody has a block that's upside down and you spot it, okay?
Especially if it hasn't been quilted yet.
Especially if it hasn't been quilted yet. Now, don't scream out, you got a block wrong. Don't do that.
No.
They're excited about what they're doing. They may not be as secure in their piecing as you are. After, though, approach them and politely say, hey, did you know that you had an upside down block?
Right.
Let them know, by all means, but, don't make a spectacle of them. That's not nice. Unless it's your best friend and you love embarrassing them, then still don't do that. That's not nice.
I think there's a rule of thumb where it's like if it's something that you can fix in 10 minutes, then it's worth telling someone.
Okay.
Like if they have something in their teeth or their hair's out of place, then that's something you should comment on. Where if it's not something somebody can change quickly, you don't tell them.
Right.
I think the same rule kind of applies to quilting.
Yeah, I mean, if
it's already quilted and
pieced
bound,
done,
I'm probably not going to tell someone that their
No.
block is upside down because you can't do anything about it. But if it's not quilted and they can still go back and fix it, 100% I'm going to pull them aside and say, hey,
yo.
I noticed this error and I want you to be happy with the quilt when it's over. So I just wanted to let you know.
Absolutely. So that's awesome. All that's great. Another thing to keep in mind, be open to learning something new. Again, the quilt police are a figment of our imagination. However, that person that's telling you what you should do may have a point.
Sure.
Maybe you didn't try that. Maybe you didn't do that.
Right.
Well, maybe you give it a shot. The same thing that Danielle tells everybody when they take a class. Come in with an open mind. You're going to make half square triangles the way they're telling you to do it. That's not your method. Give it a try. When you get home, you realize, I didn't care for that. I'm going to do it my way. Totally fine. It's worth giving it a shot.
Yeah.
Okay? Quilting friends can be the best. So, you're still new to this. You don't really have a guild or a group of people that your friends don't quilt with you. Well, we have open sews that are available. So that means you bring your sewing machine and a project to work on, and there are other quilters here. Okay.
So you have somebody who you can get opinion, tips, help, or just community with.
Just the community. Being able to ask, like, if I could ask you about this half square triangle, you could answer.
Yeah.
If I ask any of my other friends, they'd be like, it's fabric.
Right.
Like, this is going to be the response because, I don't know, that's not their wheelhouse. So find a group of people that are like-minded in your hobby. It makes it easier to get more out of the process.
Definitely.
Okay? And last but not least, my favorite rule is I refer to it as the 30-30 rule. If you can't see the mistake from 30 feet away or at 30 miles an hour or both, it doesn't matter.
Right.
I believe the saying is also phrased with a galloping horse.
Right.
I don't ride horses. I don't know. That sounds uncomfortable. But if you happen to be on a horse running past a quilt at 30 miles an hour and you can't tell where the mistake is, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So don't
Most
forget.
people won't see it.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are always here at your quilt. You're making it. You're at the 5-foot mark. Don't 5-foot it. You got to be at least 50 to 100 feet back before it's even a matter. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, if you do it at 100 foot and you're like, oh Lord, that block is completely, change that, fix that. But otherwise, don't worry about it. Okay. With that all said, that's kind of my run through on things. I don't think I have any other like, oh wait, what's Sandy doing here? She uses door peephole backwards to find mistakes. What?
That's cool.
That's weird. You go around to people's houses and peep through their peepholes like that?
Probably just her own people.
Probably her own. She probably has like little standalone peephole, like a backward telescope.
That's pretty cool.
Actually, I like that idea. That works well.
Same.
Sure.
I mean, the same principle applies as taking a photo. It just gives you a little bit of distance because, and that can help you to see the whole quilt and kind of get the noise of everything else out so that you're just looking at the quilt as a whole all at one time. So that's a really cool trick. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's really cool. So with all that said, I think we're going to start wrapping it up because I kind of run a little late. Sorry, but it's been fun. If you guys got something from this, please remember to hit that share button.
Mhm.
Go over to YouTube, subscribe over there, and share the videos from there as well. Like, it just helps us a whole lot when people know we're here. If you got something from this, by all means, make sure other people get something else from it. If you're the quilt police and you're like, I don't like your way of looking at this stuff, you may not share it. That's okay. I can appreciate that.
And, you know that we have an asterisk on this whole conversation. This is a solitary hobby, so you're going to do things the way that you like to do it. We have our way that we like to do it. There's no wrong way. There's just your way.
Yeah, absolutely. So always remember that. And again, if you have questions, you're always welcome to come and ask us.
For sure.
So I'm going to call it at this point. I
Sounds
have
good.
usually a list of things to run through, but we'll see you on Wednesday for the live sale. Make sure you come back, check out, see what we got. Until then, come in and say hi. We'll talk to you guys then, all right? Cool.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.